If you're anything like me, you've been blessed to see the natural beauties of this world. I've seen countless sunrises and sunsets. I've seen rolling hills of hardwoods, and I've been closer to wildlife than anybody could ever dream of. It's been a part of my culture and been a part of our people's culture as a whole ever since we've been around, to chase wild game and take it. My father showed me everything about it, how to get close to animals, how to be in the woods, and how to do it the right way. A study by the Association of Fish and Wildlife in 2019 showed that just under 80% of people support legal hunting. The other 20%, however, is made up of people who've never been exposed to it, people who haven't been around guns, people who haven't been around people who hunt. And being around the Charlotte area, I understand that a lot of those people come from this area. And the problem is they've just never seen the benefits of legal regulated hunting. Understanding hunting comes with information that would sway the inexposed. In fact, hunting is a benefit to wildlife and habitat conservation. Well, how is that? Well, I'm sure you know what carrying capacity is. Carrying capacity, if you don't know, is how much the land can hold based off how much food, cover, and water is in an area for any different species of animal. With changing human populations and people migrating into animals' habitats, it's our responsibility to manage these lands and conserve instead of preserve. Things like bag limits and hunting regulations can help balance these populations even with human interference. Predator-prey populations can get out of hand, and that's where we need to step in. Introducing Grant Woods, he's a wildlife biologist in Missouri, and he prioritizes creating quality habitat for deer and turkey. He brings up this example. 70% of fawns can be killed by coyotes any given year if it's not managed properly. That can easily cripple an entire herd of deer. When predator-prey populations are off, again, it's our responsibility to make them right. And the best way to do that humanely and quickly is through hunting and trapping. Most hunters are willing to take these measures to better their hunting. In turn, that betters the habitat for all the animals. Hunters play a huge role in almost every conservation effort today. In every state, there's a state agency. In our state, we have the North Carolina Wildlife and Resource Commission. These states gained funding from this thing called the Pittman-Robertson Act. It was inducted in 1937 during the Great Depression, when people had nothing. People chose to have an 11% tax on all hunting goods, such as firearms, bows and arrows, and any other hunting goods. Those funds are put right back into conservation. And since its inception, Pittman-Robertson has brought in $7 billion to give back that money to the states to put towards conservation. This relationship is by far the biggest contributor to conservation. Strict regulation can only be used, or this money can only be used for conservation and research. Recently, there was an amendment put in to include state ranges and hunter education classes to spread the sport and educate people about firearms and hunting. Pittman-Robertson, or PR, shows how regulated and enforced hunting can benefit a population. In 1890, roughly 40 years before the introduction of the Pittman-Robertson Act, there were around 30,000 deer in the U.S. Today, there's over 30 million. When asked about predator-prey populations, Grant Woods responded with another example of moose populations in Minnesota. Further research showed a study by the Timberwolf Information Network in which researchers strapped GPS to moose in the area. They strapped to it 111 moose. Shortly after they did this, 6 moose were found dead already, 4 of which were assumed to be related to the capture, and that's a small price to pay for the research being done. 2 of those 6 were considered deaths via wolves. Wolves are currently protected by law in Minnesota and everywhere else, but cannot be hunted. Without human interaction, the moose species in that area could go extinct. This is an example of preservation, just letting the animals do what they want and completely keeping human interaction out of it. The moose population, because of somebody somewhere holding an unrealistic ideal, is in danger. Because they won't see the positive impacts of human interaction. This leads me to a question: does the hunting community get misrepresented? Well, in a world full of fancy TV shows and social media that only shows the trophy, that wouldn't be too far-fetched. I believe this stems from the ideology that a hunter cannot possibly care for an animal he's out to take. To prove that, I want to take a look at agencies such as the National Wild Turkey Foundation, Quality Deer Management Association, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and Ducks Unlimited. These 4 agencies do not receive government funding. They are funded solely through donations and events that they can hold to raise money. Hunters play a huge part in funding not only the government agencies, but these as well. Hunters on their own do habitat work to better their own properties. Because again, when better hunting comes better habitat. Without hunters, this may never happen. Hunters may do things such as tree management to, say, trees are blocking sunlight from the forest floor, and they may go in and cut these trees down and later come in and do something called a prescribed fire. What that does is it burns the, say, needles off of a cedar tree and puts them back in the ground to grow fresh forbs and native grasses for all different kinds of species of animals to feed on. And again, without hunters, this may never happen. Hunting's been around since we've been around. Meat, hunting are part of our culture. Going back all the way to the Plymouth colony when they first arrived from overseas, they brought a hunting culture with them. Now they had to change their culture because at the time only the rich and the landowners were allowed to hunt, and later they made it to where everybody could hunt. And then moving on later into our history, we have people like Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett, who gained a lofty reputation from their skills in the wilderness. It takes a ton of effort and money to conserve the animals we love. While the anti-hunting groups oppose everything that we stand for, hunters put their own dime into protecting the hunt for the future. Maybe you're unfamiliar, or maybe you oppose the sport, but the best thing forward is conservation. And the hunting community plays the biggest role in that. Hopefully, the more you zoom in, the clearer that you can see it.